end zone. Underthrown, touchdown! Trey Tucker! To the end zone it goes! Caught! Touchdown, Armand
Bearcat Blitz, taking you into the weekends here on the Believe Network. We are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, and I am your host, Russ Heltman, on a little shortened, abbreviated show during the early days of the transfer portal for Cincinnati Bearcats basketball and the wind down of spring football for Cincinnati Bearcats football. We have a commitment on the board for Cincinnati in terms of the transfer portal, one so far, along with a few other exits. Update that to start the show, and then we will get into a new hire for the Cincinnati Bearcats football program, a new old hire, a kind of not reconciliation, but a reunion, so to speak, between new head football kind of advisor Mark Speir. He is going to be the new assistant head coach under Scott Satterfield after being their chief of staff for UC football in 2023. All that coming up on Bearcat Blitz, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can bet on the college football national championship winner for the 2026-27 season. A few teams with odds shorter than 10-1 on the board over at FanDuel Sportsbook. You got Georgia at 9-1, Oregon at plus 850, Indiana at 8-1, Texas at plus 750, Notre Dame at plus 650, and Ohio State at plus 550 to win the national championship this coming season. Head to FanDuel Sportsbook today to bet on the national championship winner for the 2026-27 college football season, barreling down the pipe just a few months from getting back into the gridiron on the college football side of things. College basketball to start us off on this episode of Bearcat Blitz. Coming up after these messages, we are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Quick break there, and solo show for me, Russ Heltman of Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. We'll have Neil Meyer of the Front Office News back next week as we get you caught up on all of the basketball transfer portal action to start things off in the 2027 or 2026 cycle. And Cincinnati has added their first player to this new team under Jared Calhoun. David Uweze is coming over from Utah State. He redshirted in his freshman season, has 4 years of eligibility left. He was a top 50 center in the 2025 class, really elevated to right around 6'9", 210, 215 pounds, something like that. I probably expect him to play closer to 225, 230 at Cincinnati, and may end up stabling out at 6'10" overall once he's done growing. But he's a guy that I think will be a part of the rotation for sure. Going to be in the mix during his redshirt sophomore season, and a redshirt, I guess it would be freshman season last year, so this will be his redshirt freshman season coming in here. 9th, 10th, 11th man, a guy that could really hit the glass hard, be a good worker, consistent worker. And this is a good quote here from Jared Calhoun when they were discussing David Uweze and his addition to the roster over earlier this month. I mean, Uweze, he was talking about Uweze back. This was, I think, when they first signed him, sometime in the middle of 2025 that these quotes came down from Jared Calhoun. But he noted that he almost wanted to not bring Uweze into the recruiting class, and they were so hesitant that they confirmed that they were going to redshirt him before he even got on campus. And then Calhoun figured out that once he got on campus, this was like a whole new different player. He'd put on double-digit pounds in total muscle, had really grown through a growth spurt, and he looked like a guy that they would be able to use last season, but they had just already confirmed and already planned to redshirt him, so they did not end up playing him at all. But Calhoun made it seem like he took a huge leap in that offseason. Maybe he can take another huge leap in this offseason and really be ready to play at the back end of a Big 12 rotation. But David Uweze, first player to commit to Cincinnati out of the transfer portal for Jared Calhoun, and I think should be a solid addition. I mean, was getting recruited by programs like Cal, USC, and Texas A&M before he went with Jared Calhoun out of high school, and quickly made the decision to follow his head coach to Cincinnati. And looking at some of the rest of the transfer portal news to update people on here, We have had a couple of other players enter their names in the transfer portal. I believe we talked about it on earlier this week that John Tillery is entering the transfer portal, and we had Sincere Harris also enter the transfer portal earlier this week. That happened a little bit after, I believe, we started recording the show on Tuesday. And when you look at this decision by Sincere Harris, it makes a lot of sense. And there's been some rumblings around the program that there's been quite a hefty amount of money asked from these players on the current roster to come back next season. It just like with so many other things in life, it might just be time for a full break, clean slate start. As Sincere Harris enters the portal, you got Keyshawn Tillery in the portal as well. Harris, former West Virginia defensive standout. This is going to be his fourth team in 4 years. Had 31 appearances for the Bearcats last season. Made 8 starts, 5.7 points, 2.7 rebounds. A really great on-ball defender. He's a Big 12 level, all Big 12 level at points last season. Defender on that end of the floor. I mean, just not even a mid-major offensive player on the other end. Shot 38.6% from the floor. I mean, a 40.5% effective field goal rate is unplayable. That's an unplayable offensive rate right there. And it just goes to show that, especially in an offensive-laden system like Jared Calhoun's, it was going to be very hard to find consistent playing time for an offensive player so inconsistent like Sincere Harris is. So wish him all the best as he finds a new college home. And Cincinnati now has no players in the mix right now in the backcourts. Keyshawn Tillery in the transfer portal, Jizzle James as well in the transfer portal, and I do not expect any of them to come back to Cincinnati moving forward with this new coaching staff. So this is continuing to see the players enter the mix there. Have not seen many other guys go in since then. I mean, when we're looking at the overall kind of scholarship sheet, Bearcat Bunch does a great job with this over on X. You can find the scholarship sheet from him. And no guards on the roster as of this recording. Still have Jalen Haynes out there as your one kind of veteran player with 1 season of eligibility left. He has not entered the transfer portal yet. I think he's probably got the highest likelihood, him and Tyler McKinley, of staying on this roster and staying for the first season of Jared Calhoun. But Jordy Rodriguez still on the roster as well, has not entered his name in the portal, same with Halvin Gisellett, has not entered his name in the portal, and Tyler McKinley still there with 3 years of eligibility left, and a Cincinnati kid at that. Jalen Haynes, Tyler McKinley, would honestly be a little surprised if they are not back. The other 2 guys would be not as high a likelihood that Gisella and Rodriguez would return, but I think there's maybe a decent chance, closer to a coin flip chance than many of the other names on this roster, that Jalen Haynes and Tyler McKinley end up returning. So a big weekend of visits coming up. There was a dead period to start the transfer portal action this week. Nobody was able to take visits until this weekend. So should start to get some more news about guys committing and this roster really starting to flesh out over the next few days on the basketball front. What a start. What a start for Jared Calhoun and his first year with Cincinnati. They're moving and grooving and setting up visits and getting those in motion this weekend with some of the big names. The starting rotation, the starting names will start to get added to this roster over the next few days or so. Should be plenty for Neil and I to talk about when we reconvene for the next show on Tuesday morning. Taking a quick break here on Bearcat Blitz before we close things out with a look at spring football and the final week of spring practices, only including Friday, the practice this afternoon. There's only 4 sessions left in the spring cycle for Cincinnati football, who is hoping to shed this 1,000-1 status to win the college football playoff this coming season and try to be the dark horse of all dark horses. They're in a group of basically, it looks like there's 50 to 60 teams that are 1,000-1, and Cincinnati is one of them. They have the same odds as Wyoming to win the college football playoff. The same odds as FIU and Rice in the college football playoff. That seems a little crazy to me that those programs would be considered the same level chance as Cincinnati to win the national championship, but that's what you get when you haven't won 8 games in a season in the Big 12 at all in your time there and haven't won 8 games in a season since Luke Fickell's last year at the helm. Cincinnati way down the odds board, but at the top, you got Ohio State at plus 550 on the FanDuel Sportsbook, Notre Dame at plus 650, Texas at plus 750, Indiana at 8-1, Oregon at plus 850, and Georgia at 9-1 as your teams with shorter than 10-1 odds to win the college football playoff in January 2027. A bit of ways away to go before we get to that. Not very far away from a look at the Cincinnati Bearcats football program as we wind down this show on Bearcat Blitz. Closing things out on this episode of Bearcat Blitz as take you into the weekend on the Believe Network. We are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, where Cincinnati has added a new name to their staff. Mark Speir, former head coach at Western Carolina, has been coaching for more than 30 years in different roles on support staffs and regular coaching staffs, and he is now the new assistant head coach for Scott Satterfield as he brings another trusted voice in, brings things a little bit closer to the vest even more, and prepares for what could be a very much make or break season for the Scott Satterfield tenure in Cincinnati. After this year, the buyout becomes much more palatable for Cincinnati if they would like to move on. And sport of college football these days, you got to start winning in year 4 and beyond. A lot of places you can start winning right away and turn things around in a year, if not 2 years. It hasn't quite happened the level of success that Bearcats fans want to see out of this program in the Scott Satterfield era in the Big 12, but got that facility in full motion now. They got full revenue sharing from the Big 12, so all of the kind of hurdles that they were working up against in the first half of the Scott Satterfield era, those are largely not there anymore, and it's all systems go. I mean, they've been practicing, I'm pretty sure every single practice in the spring period has been at the IPF, whether it's been a 65-degree sunny day or a 45-degree rainy day. They are maximizing all of the technological improvements and state-of-the-art facilities access that they have there, and they're trying to squeeze as many wins as possible out of this coming season. And Speir will be in the rowboats with one of those oars trying to move things along in that direction. He was the chief of staff during the 2023 season, and he worked under Satterfield in the same role in 2022. Moved back to North Carolina. I'm sure it was just to be closer to the family. He grew up in North Carolina, deep ties to Appalachian State, where he worked in off-field roles in 2024 and 2025. Quote from Satterfield here: "I'm excited to welcome Mark Speir back to our Cincinnati football team. Mark brings a wealth of experience as a coach and support staffer. He will be integral in helping me set the vision for the Bearcats while helping us achieve our goals on and off the field." Speaking of the field, versatility has been a huge factor for the Cincinnati Bearcats football team in the spring. They are, as I mentioned, trying to squeeze as many wins as possible out of this coming season. And to do that, you have to squeeze as much talent and as much production impact as possible out of your talent pool that you have. So they're moving guys all around. I mean, Jay Cannon goes from an outside cornerback at Bowling Green. He's now going to play safety as a bigger-bodied safety, 6'3", 6'4" safety, hopefully able for Bearcats fans to make some big plays happen and create some more interceptions after they ranked dead last in the entire country last season with, I believe, 2 or 3 total interceptions. I mean, Antoine Peaks moving from that star/safety position to more nickel, close to the line of scrimmage, outside linebacker role. You got guys like Tarantayo playing all over the line of scrimmage and actually giving up reps this spring so that other guys can step in and be able to be as versatile as they can possibly be and fill in if there's injuries that come about, because this team was wildly healthy last season, especially along that offensive line. And so you have to be prepared for that health to maybe regress to the mean in a negative direction in that sense. And overall, it's just finding the best combination of players. I think the depth is I would say the top end talent is not as high as it was last year. This roster is the deepest of any Scott Satterfield roster yet. And so will that depth allow them to execute better in late game moments because you're not quite as tired? You got some guys that have been able to fill in for you at moments throughout the game, and especially execute in the later parts of seasons when all of the reps, all of the nicks and dings and tackles start to stack up in that month of November, where Cincinnati has won one game in the Scott Satterfield era. It is so imperative that they have a successful November and that you build yourself up the right way to get to that success in November. From what I've seen this spring, they're doing all the right things. They're checking all the right boxes. I think this is going to be a bowl team once again. Will it be a Big 12 contending team? Well, we saw that for the first 2/3 of the season last year, and then it all came crashing down for one reason or another in terms of late game execution and just ability to make the other team make mistakes. A little bit more confident that that'll be better this season, but once again, like I said, you won't have the top end talent to lean on like you were able to get great production out of last season, but you have the depth to lean on the back end. We'll see if that ends up creating a better than 7-5 record in the confines of Nippert Stadium and beyond this fall. For Neil Meyer, we'll bring him back next week. I'm Russ Eltman. This has been Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. Hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again on Tuesday.
And it's a deep shot. He's got Tyler Scott, and he's into open space. First throw of the year for Desmond Ritter. Touchdown, Bearcats.
Ritter in a rhythm, going to take a shot towards the end zone. Under the touchdown, Trey Tucker.